All yours.
Dr. Chappell, thank you very much. Students, I'm happy to be with you. I did give this lecture. First of all, I prepared a presentation for a California state government regulatory agency on artificial intelligence. Then I gave it as part of a conference that Dr. Chappell had put on at Loyola Marymount. If I understand this correctly, there's two classes here: Dr. Swanson, Dr. Chappell's class. Dr. Swanson's class is on Buddhism and Christianity in dialogue, if I understand correctly, and also Dr. Chappell's class is on world religions and ecology. I hope I understand this correctly. I've modified my presentation for you today to, as you see here, I want to raise some preliminary questions for Buddhists and Christians in dialogue. But that would go, I think the questions I'm raising goes equally well for yoga tradition and Hinduism as well. You can see here, I speak about artificial intelligences. One of the advisors to the Pope on artificial intelligence, he's an advisor to the European Union, also the Pope, suggests that we speak not about our artificial intelligence, but artificial intelligences in the plural, for the simple reason that as of now, there's no such thing as general artificial intelligence, that the machines we have today currently can simulate certain aspects of human intelligence. And so we should, to remind ourselves of that, the limitations of the machines, we should use the plural. I'll just leave it at that, okay? I've been reading, excuse me a second here. I've been doing a lot of reading long before artificial intelligence became a hot topic last year. I've been doing a lot of reading. I can provide Dr. Chappell, Dr. Swanson with a bibliography if you want to follow up on this. And of course, both professors can put you in touch with me if you've got questions or ideas or suggestions for me. I would appreciate that. But there's a lot of talk going on right now about artificial intelligence, as I presume you're aware. Some of it is more, I'd say, more interesting than others. There's a lot of nonsense out there as well. Okay, these are some of the people that I have been reading and talking to. Okay, including Pope Francis. Pope Francis. January the 1st of this year gave his World Day of Peace message. It was on artificial intelligence. You can get that on the web. Pope Francis, World Day of Peace 2024. I recommend it's a very succinct statement about the ethics of artificial intelligence. I recommend it. In addition, students, here, these are four thinkers that, as you can see from their dates, lived long before we began talking about artificial intelligence. And so they are not writing about artificial intelligence, but they are thinkers about modernity, European, Western European modernity, and on technology. And I recommend all of these thinkers, all four of them, to you very, very strongly. I'm not going to get down into the weeds on this, but if you have questions about any of these thinkers or any of these sources I have, please, perhaps we can discuss that at the end of my presentation. So what do I want to do today? First, I want to review some recent history about how we got to where we are today. Very simple elements of the history of artificial intelligence. Second, I want to raise some ethical concerns about artificial intelligence, of two kinds of ethical concerns. And the third thing I want to do is some ideas for dialogue with Buddhists. I should be clear. I'm a Christian theologian. I'm a practicing Roman Catholic. I come out of that tradition, and I've been involved with dialogue with Buddhists for a long time, 40 years basically. Okay, dialogue with Buddhists. I want to raise some issues about artificial intelligence that I think will be useful for dialogue between Christians and Buddhists. So, some history. First point. I'm going to just come you can see here, I'm just going to give you some highlights here, okay? In 1956, there was a meeting at Dartmouth College, and this is where the term artificial intelligence was coined. I think some people would make an argument that artificial intelligence was a misnomer and a mistake, that what these machines do today and what these gentlemen here were dreaming about what machines might be able to do someday shouldn't be called intelligence. Certainly, if you're going to call it intelligence, it should be called artificial intelligence. But therein lies a complicated story. But that the term artificial intelligence dates from 1956. 2011 is a big date. IBM created a artificial intelligence machine they called Watson. It was named after one of the founders of IBM, and famously, it shot the moon during a Jeopardy game with two world champion Jeopardy players. Okay, and then some of you may be familiar with a game that is popular in East Asia called Go. I used to live in Japan, and I can remember as a college student in Japan, walking through my neighborhood in Tokyo, and there was in a garage there was two elderly gentlemen playing Go. This is my first experience with this game. This fellow he's a Korean Go master. He's an amazing player and quite famous, certainly in Korea and other parts of East Asia, where Go is popular. Go is a game board. Everybody think how much more complicated chess is compared to checkers. Well, chess is to checkers what Go is to chess. Go is enormously complicated. And in 2016, let me just say there are some technical reasons to show how to get a machine to calculate moves for playing the game Go. It's this board game. It's enormous, just enormous, and how IBM programmed, or excuse me, how this artificial intelligence company programmed this machine AlphaGo to play Go is amazing, and it beat Mr. Lee at the game. I just gonna a quick comment. Famously, in the second game between Mr. Lee and the machine, I think it's the 32nd move of the second game. The machine made a move, and everyone pulled back from it, and were just astounded. And everyone agreed no human being would make this move. And it turned out by the end of the game, it was a move that was crucial to winning the game. Okay, so there's a lot going on here. 2012, though, I'm going back from 2016, 2012, there was a development here that I think is very important. It was a move from symbolic logic to what's called stochastic analysis. Everyone, I'm a theologian. I don't have a background in computer science or anything of that nature, so I'm not going to comment too much. But I think it's important for us to understand this. I think is a very important point. When I was in college, I was a philosophy major, and I spent a semester studying symbolic logic. So everyone listen to this. Listen to this sentence. If I should receive the package tomorrow in the mail before 3 o'clock, then I will either take it to your house or I will call our mutual friend to discuss it and then take it to your house. You could take what I just said there, that sentence, you could take that and diagram it. I don't know if they still teach diagramming sentences in grammar schools these days, okay? It has a logical structure. If the package arrives before 3 p.m. tomorrow, then I have two choices, either or, okay? It breaks down, it has a logical structure. And you can replicate that logical structure using a symbolic notation. So look on the left side of the screen there. These are this is the notation used by symbolic logic. Okay, I think you got the idea. computers were being programmed using symbolic logic up until 2012. After that time, there was a shift from symbolic logic to stochastic analysis. Stochastics in mathematics, I'm told, has to do with probabilities. So instead of a logic tree, if, then, either, or, those kinds of distinctions. What if you simply said, what are the odds of like word fill, right? Okay, so you're writing a word and you get pretty deep into it, and all of a sudden your word processing program fills in the rest of the word because it's thinking, what are the odds that this is the word you're thinking of? Okay, so that the odds are that this is what the rest of the word is going to be, and very often, at least in my experience, very often the machine is correct. This is called stochastics. So here on the right side of the screen, starting at time 0, okay, you move through 10, 20, 34, you move ahead in time, and given changing conditions, what are the odds of a result developing? Well, this can be calculated using stochastic analysis. So in effect, if I understand my friend, I work closely with this dear friend at the in Switzerland. He's a big shot in artificial intelligence. He tells me that 2012, this shift from symbolic logic to stochastic analysis. So, and I said, so Pascal, I said, in effect, what you're saying is that these chatbots that are garnering so much intelligence these days, it's really basically like word fill on your computer. And he said, yeah, that's correct. It's stochastics, not symbolic logic, but stochastics. Okay. So everyone, eventually we're going to come down here to, there's a phrase that a professor of computer science at Rutgers University in New Jersey coined, that chatbots are, she says, stochastic parrots. That you can train a chatbot to simulate human language. But just as a parrot can speak English without knowing at all what the parrot is saying, what my mom had a parakeet when I was younger, and the parakeet would sit on my mom's finger and say, pretty bird, pretty bird, pretty bird, okay, and not knowing at all what pretty means or what a bird is, okay. Similarly, by means of stochastics, computers can simulate human speech, human language. Okay, so here in 2018, these three gentlemen, Jan LeCun, Geoffrey Hinton, and Joshua Bengio, were given the Turing Prize. Some of you are familiar with Turing. Turing was the inventor of one of the first computers. Okay, these gentlemen are noteworthy because they were instrumental in developing the notion of neural networks. Okay, let me. I think I've got a slide here for neural networks. Okay, let me go back to this. Neural networks. This really, it was layers and layers of computation in a machine that was programmed to artificially reproduce human intelligence. These are the three big players here. Some of whom, especially Geoffrey Hinton in the center here, is very much concerned about the potential for artificial intelligence to do mischief, if not damage, to human beings. Okay, so the 14th of March is just about a year ago. OpenAI, which is financed pretty much by Microsoft, introduced GPT-4. These I'll go back to this one more time here. These three guys produced a technology called generative pre-trained transformers. Okay, this is a technology in computer programming that is essential for artificial intelligence, especially for chatbots. Okay, and indeed, 2023 last year, OpenAI introduced to the public GPT-4, generative generative pre-trained transformer technology. It's a chatbot. Okay, everyone, take a look at this picture. You're all in liberal arts here, okay? And in liberal arts, we want to train you to think critically about what's going on all around you in the world. You are being bombarded by images, students. Bombarded. We are all being bombarded by images. So let's stop and stop the enchantment for just a moment to think critically about what's going on here. Look at how small the man is there on the stage in compared to this anthropomorphic image of artificial intelligence there on the screen behind him. And indeed, look how OpenAI has chosen to represent its product, its machine. It has the face of an attractive young lady, although she's looking a little green in the eye there, I have to say. Look at behind the face is a machine. So clearly she's a robot, I guess you could say. All right. I find it quite interesting. I bring this up with my feminist friends, that this technology, this machine technology, is being personified with a woman's face. Go to the internet and check out images on Google for AI. The propensity to personify, to humanize this machine with a woman's face is striking. We need to study that. So look how small the man is in relationship to this personification, this anthropomorphized. You all know the word anthropomorphism. It is depicting. It originally meant to depict God in human form. Okay, in this case, it's not God; it's a machine that is being depicted, being personified in human form. Okay, look how small the man is, and also look down below there. The audience. Okay, all of us are observers of this large machine with a woman's face and this small man. I think we need to reflect on that some more. So GPT-4 reaching 1 million users. Netflix took Netflix 3.5 years to reach 1 million users, and go through the list there like that. GPT-4 got a million users of subscribers just in 5 days. And 2 months after its release, GPT-4, this product by OpenAI, had 100 million subscribers. Okay, so this is going like gangbusters today. Okay, so that's the first part there. That's just a little bit of history. Let me give you some ethical concerns here. Again, I'm going to raise a number of ethical concerns that I want to bring to your attention. But students, I'm going to give you right now. I'm dealing more with I'd rather deal more with scope than with depth. Each one of these issues deserves a lot of attention, and we just don't have time to give it to you. So let me give you some ideas here. First, ethical concern: moving fast and breaking things. I think that this was Facebook, this was one of their mottos: moving fast and breaking things. I want to talk about technology as a disruptor of the social order. So here's a wood block of the printing press. I think it's safe to say that the printing press brought down the Middle Ages. It brought down the Middle Ages and brought about the advent of modernity. Certainly was instrumental in the Protestant Reformation, for example, the printing of the Bible, but even more importantly, the printing of pamphlets. Okay, so the printing press turned out to be extremely disruptive of the social order. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that we need to pay attention to this. And there on the right side of your screen here, this is one of the first mechanical clocks. This is in the cathedral in Durham, England. Okay, everyone, I have a clock on my wrist that is plugged in with a satellite telling me what time it is. Okay, think how structured our lives have become, and hence how disrupted our society has become by the advent of the mechanical, and now the electric, and then eventually the digital clock. Okay, Let me push on though. The flying shuttle. The flying shuttle. This is part of a technology of producing textiles. It was introduced in 1733. Okay, and I don't know exactly how this works, but basically, you can see there on the right, you can use a person can use a lever, and the shuttle flies back and forth between the woof and the warp and the woof in producing textiles. Okay, this made the power loom possible. Well, the power loom meant that in England, at least, okay, that landowners in Ireland, the land became extremely valuable for raising sheep, for wool, and flax for making cloth. Okay, it also meant that large numbers of Irish people were forced off the land in Ireland and brought to England to work in the factories. Okay, this was made possible. My point is that something as simple as the flying shuttle, this little technical innovation, had huge social consequences. The development of textile industries in Liverpool and Manchester in England not only disrupted life in Ireland, okay, it also made growing cotton in the South by means of, and harvesting that cotton by means of slave labor, extremely profitable. I'm not saying that the power loom and the flying shuttle are evil. I'm saying that they are inextricably related, connected to, and they're inseparable from human dislocation in Ireland and slavery in the southern part of the United States. I think students, without exaggeration, I can tell you one of the reasons that I'm here is that the flying shuttle made the relocation of my Irish ancestors necessary. Okay, my point is that technology is never without its social implications. And now that we're looking at artificial intelligence, we need to be asking ourselves, what sorts of social disruption, social change will be brought about by this technology? We need to be talking to one another, paying attention, and coming up with ideas and sharing that with one another. But this is a conversation that needs to go on. So, bringing it a little back closer to home to you there in Los Angeles, Respeecher is a company based in Los Angeles, okay? And they, as the name of the company might suggest, Respeecher, they simulate human voices. So here's part of the sales pitch that's from their website. You can go to their website. Respeech is the name of the company. You can find this for yourself. This is two selected passages from their website. We all need a backup plan. If you're not happy with an actor's recording, if the actor quits during production or passes away, replicate their voice to keep their project on tact. There was a time when the computer scientists needed about a half an hour of a person's voice in order to simulate their voice with a machine. I'm told now that companies like Respeecher, other AI companies, can replicate a human voice with remarkable accuracy with just seconds of a sample. Okay, and now look at the subsequent passage here. We know voice replication technology could be dangerous in the wrong hands. Yes, indeed. So we have implemented a strict code of ethics and strong security measures. I would like to examine sometime, if we had more time, students, examine in detail what Respeecher, this company that will replicate anybody's voice, what kinds of how strict is the code of ethics and the strong security measures that they have in place? I say that to you because this week's copy of the New Yorker has an article about a new scam. You get a call and it's a loved one, say, your parents get a call and it's their daughter. Mom and Dad, I've been kidnapped. I'm being held here. And then the voice of your child is cut off and a guy comes on and says, yeah, we've got your kid, okay, and we want $30,000 or we want $100,000 or $1 million or whatever the deal is, okay? And if you don't, then, okay, and then your child's voice comes on and says, Mom, Dad, they're not kidding. I'm really here. You got to pay this, okay? then they shut her up, okay, and they go on with the threat. And no one's been kidnapped. They've gotten a hold of a person's the daughter's voice from YouTube or someplace, okay? And they have the technology to reproduce the voice and get that voice to say anything that they want. It's a scam. Just be careful, students. Okay, here you go. I just had lunch with friends from Ethiopia. Chris, you'll know Elias Wandimo, okay?
Yes.
Elias is from Ethiopia, and he was telling me about Emperor Menelik II. He lived from 1844 to 1913. He's a big deal in the history of Africa, students. Get this. He, in 1911, 1912, he was instrumental in organizing and modernizing Ethiopia, created a modern army, and they kicked the Italians out. So this is the guy, Emperor Menelik II of Ethiopia, begins the decolonization process in Africa. He's really important in that regard. And students, maybe not so much here in the United States where he's not so well known, but in Africa, especially in Ethiopia, this guy has great cultural resonance. He's a liberator, okay? Well, the emperor made an appearance in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia just last year. This is him. Now he died in 1913, okay, but he's been recreated using hologram technology, holographic technology, okay. And there he is. He'd appeared on the stage and on the screen here at a political meeting in Addis Ababa.
Good afternoon. This message is for James Fredericks, the ABC Medical College.
Okay.
Following up to see if you're ready for your next shipment of supplies.
Excuse me, students.
Number is 855-734-664.
I've got doctors calling me here. Students, the point is this, that the president and the prime minister of Ethiopia were able to recreate the image and the voice of this emperor who died over 100 years ago, giving a political speech in support of the government in Ethiopia. Students, think of the implications, the political implications of this. Okay, so I was telling this to a friend of mine and saying, "Oh, so is Ronald Reagan going to appear at the Republican nominating convention this June or July, whenever it is? Okay, endorsing Donald Trump, or is John Fitzgerald Kennedy going to appear for the Democrats endorsing Joe Biden?" Hold it. What is going on here? And everyone says, well, obviously Emperor Menelik II died over 100 years ago, so this is not really him. Except, students, look how slippery images have become now. Okay, there's our huge ethical implications for this. Are we going to need anyone to teach Chemistry 101 any longer? And I say that because students, if you have younger siblings, chances are they're going to grow up. If you grew up taking the iPhone for granted, these little kids are going to grow up taking for granted the fact that they have a artificial intelligence tutor. This is a tutor that is their tutor, their specific tutor. This is a machine that knows them, that knows what their learning deficiencies might be, their deficits might be, that know what courses they're studying. They know that this is a machine that knows their vocabulary, their reading skills, and is able to respond to them in a very personalized way, okay? And these kids are going to grow up taking this for granted, okay? So, also though, I'm speaking to you, when I got to be 65, I retired from the classroom, okay? I used to teach at LMU. I used to teach a course on Dante's Divina Commedia, okay? It's the story of this great Italian poem from the Middle Ages. Dante goes on a journey down through the pit of hell. You can see that on the left side. There in the center, he ascends the mountain of purgatory, and eventually goes up into is taken up into the mystical rose, which is heaven. It's a fabulous poem. And famously, on the gate of hell, you can see that then on the left, the gate of hell, there's a famous inscription, and the inscription is Lasciate ogni speranza voi che entrate, in Italian. Abandon all hope, you who enter here. It's a famous, very, very, very famous the inscription over the gate of hell. Abandon all hope, you who enter here. So I was sitting with a friend of mine over lunch, and he had his computer with his chatbot application. I said, let's get the chatbot to write something about the inscription over the gate of hell in Dante's Inferno, the third canto of Dante's Inferno. And so my friend said, well, okay, well, like, what do you want to say? I said, well, the gate of hell is really a symbol of the ego, this sovereign ego that refuses to budge, that leads us into sin and eventually imprisons us in hell. So gave this instruction to his chat GPT-4, okay? And this is what the machine produced, okay? Everyone, look at this, okay? This inscription is to abandon all hope is a chilling reminder of what is lost through sin, the essence of our humanity, our connection to the divine, and the potential for redemption. In this light, the gate of hell is more than a physical structure. It is a mirror reflecting the darkest possibilities of the human condition, a reminder of the delicate fabric of our humanity, and a warning of the perils of its unraveling. My wonderful students, no human being wrote this. This is the product of stochastic analysis. Give the machine really a minimal amount of prompting, and this is the prose that it produces. Students, I am terrified by this, and I'll tell you why. When I was teaching at Loyola Marymount, I would gather with my students. I'd have say, students, for next week, I'd say, I want you to read the third canto, and I want you to write me an essay. Like 2-3 pages, whatnot, simple, quick essay on Canto 3, okay? And give me a good expository essay, make me a claim, and then defend your claim, and hopefully you'll cite the text in support of your claim. Then in class, students would gather in class, and I say, okay, we're going to do the third canto today. Then I turn to a student, I say, Louis or Maria or Henry or Isabel, what do you got? Okay, and we go off to the races. Students, you can produce an essay on Dante's third canto just simply by just typing a few words in your computer, prompting your chatbot, and you get prose like this. So I want to pose a question to you, students. This doesn't so much apply to you, but these little kids. I have no doubt that these little kids are going to learn how to type. Are they going to learn how to think? Because it's by writing essays on the third canto of Dante's Inferno, for example, that we learn how to think. We learn how to read critically, to reflect on what we've read, and to put that together into an idea, an expository idea, that a claim and to support the claim by citing the text. These little kids, I have no doubt that they're going to learn how to type. Are they going to learn how to think? Okay, I think that let that be an open question. So we're dealing with some ethical concerns. We've talked about technology as a social disruptor. I also want to just discuss with you here briefly new kinds of ethical questions. So the first one is, we've touched on it already here, the erosion of trust. So everyone, look at these two images here. Which of these two is a deep fake? And of course, the answer is both. are that neither one of these are photographs, that someone prompted a artificial intelligence model, a machine, give me a picture of, fill in the blank there like that, and this is what it produced. Okay. Last July, I should say, of 2022, President Biden, a video appeared of President Biden talking about his plan to reinstitute a draft so that Americans could be drafted into the military to go fight the Russians in Ukraine. Okay, this appeared in July of 2022. Okay, except of course it didn't happen. That the entire thing is a deep fake. Not only faking the image, but faking the voice of the president. Or maybe I should, more accurately, I should probably say, not only faking the voice, but faking the image of the president as well. Okay. So this is a screenshot from an infamous video of Mr. Trump, the so-called Access Hollywood video. Students, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this or not. The president said Mr. Trump said some pretty nasty things, and today Mr. Trump claims that this is a deep fake, that this didn't happen, that just as this video of Mr. Biden calling for a draft is a fake, so also this is a fake as well. Now, students, I think very few people believe that this Access Hollywood video is fake, okay? But I have to tell you, students, I can't prove that it's not. There is an erosion of trust. We can no longer trust what's before our eyes. What we hear and what we see before our eyes is that being able to trust that is being eroded, okay? So in addition to the erosion of trust, I also want to talk briefly about medical ethics. So this morning I spoke with a neurologist at the University of California, San Francisco. We talked about medical imaging and how artificial intelligence is going to have very important consequences for medicine, especially in the area of medical imaging. You go for MRI, and then instead of having a physician analyze the images, a machine can analyze it and come up with all kinds of things. There's a lot of excitement at UCSF in this regard. Okay. Also, excitement at UCSF in regard to protein folding. And here, once again, this is a matter of technology that I'm not going to spend much time on it because it's not my area of expertise. But proteins are these long lines of DNA, and the way in which they are folded is the term that's being used here, has a major impact on how the protein functions. Those of you that are biology majors can explain this far better than I. Finding a protein and then figuring out how to unfold it in order to understand how it's folded and how it functions, or even changing its function. Artificial intelligence holds great promise in this regard. So cool. Okay. I'm especially interested in this. I have multiple sclerosis, and my physicians at the University of California, San Francisco, say that one of the genes that they find interesting is the C allele of the RS6897932 gene. This is part of a panoply of genes, apparently, that is responsible for making a person susceptible to multiple sclerosis. So there's a lot of qualifiers in there. I asked one of my neurologists, I said, could you use CRISPR technology, that's gene editing technology, could you use artificial intelligence to figure out what is the sequence of this combination of genes that leads to multiple sclerosis? And then could you use CRISPR technology, gene editing, to disrupt this process and in effect cure multiple sclerosis? And Dr. Wilbon in neurology said, certainly everything, she said, Professor Fredericks, everything that you've said is imaginable. We may be a long ways from doing that, but everything you've said is conceivable. So students, let me just say this. Then I said to another one of my doctors, I said this, doctor, off the record, do you think that there is a genetic component to gender dysphoria? Students, you all know this term, gender dysphoria. It's some people are born or whatever express dissatisfaction with their assigned the gender assigned at birth. Okay, so I'm speaking to a young woman who says, excuse me, I'm speaking with a young person who says, Father, everybody thinks I'm a girl, but I'm not. I'm a boy. This person is in high school, first year, second year now of high school. Okay, so this person has what my doctors call gender dysphoria, dysphoria, dissatisfaction with their assigned gender. Okay, so I asked my doctor. I said, "So do you think there's a genetic basis?" And the answer is, well, it's very complicated, but yeah, probably there is a genetic basis for this. To which I said, do you think that CRISPR technology, with fortified by artificial intelligence, could offer a cure for gender dysphoria? And my doctor stopped and said, look how the technology is changing the meaning of our medical terminology. Students, here's how it works. Gender dysphoria sounds nice and it sounds clinically neutral. In fact, there are some people who aren't happy with their assigned gender. Gender dysphoria, that sounds nice and neutral. But if AI combined with gene editing offers us the possibility of altering this condition, suddenly gender dysphoria becomes the name of a disease that we can cure. Students, there are huge ethical implications for how we respond to people, to real human beings who have values, they have identities, they have hopes for the future. There are huge implications for this, okay? And gene editing augmented by artificial intelligence, my point is, these are ethical questions that we never had to look at before. New kinds of ethical questions is what I'm talking about here. Okay, so not only medical ethics, but also the question of legibility in neural networks. Here, let me speak about this quickly. A neural network. These are those three pioneers in artificial intelligence that I spoke of earlier. That a neural network is layers of processing. I have to tell you that don't think of this as physical layers. It has to do with the way that machines are programmed. Okay, but the gist of it for our purposes is this: is that when you look at you have input, and then there's this complex processing going in two directions. It's going not only forwards, but it's going backwards and then forwards again, eventually producing an output. And my friends in computer science are telling me that it's not always possible. As a matter of fact, it's quite often it's impossible to fully reconstruct the computation process that leads to the output. In other words, neural networks are not fully legible. Students, this is the term they use. Maybe a more common term, a more familiar term for us would be transparency. AI models based on based on neural networks are not fully transparent. So students, think about this for a second. Back in the early 2000s, Google had a artificial intelligence machine. When they showed it a picture of a African American person, and the machine said it was a gorilla. Well, we got a problem here, and you better believe that Google took this program off the market real fast. Okay, Then the computer scientist retrained it and retrained it and retrained it. Okay, they haven't solved the problem yet. It's been like a decade. Okay, the students, they ended up solving the problem, if you want to call it a solution, by removing the term gorilla, then chimpanzee, and then baboon, and go through the list of the primates. Okay, they remove all these words from the machine's vocabulary. So students, think about this for a moment. Clearly, there's a problem here. Okay, and so we got to fix it. Okay, what if you can't tell if you've got a problem? For example, criminal justice. There are companies that provide a service that should a judge set bail. Well, look at what we're going to do. We're going to take in all kinds of data on the person that's been arrested and is awaiting bail, and that we can use stochastic analysis to determine just what is the likelihood that this person is going to jump bail. Or conversely, what about a person that is on time in a penitentiary, and now that the time has come to decide whether or not the person should be eligible for parole? Well, we're going to put in all kinds of data here like that, tons and tons of data, and then we're going to use stochastic analysis, that is, say, probabilities, to determine whether that person is a good risk for granting parole. Okay, well, so students, let's say for parole. Okay, here we have a prisoner who came from a family. What sort of family background? That kind of data. How significant is that? Okay, did the person come from a whole family, a single mother? Was this family impoverished? Was there alcoholism in the family? Go through the list of all the things. Okay, and the AI is gonna provide probability weights for all of these things. Okay, there are huge value judgments implied in all of this. This is not objective. There are huge value judgments in this. Okay, and don't be surprised if the results reflect the prejudices of our society. I'll just leave it at that. We've never had students look at the mystique that computers have. Well, of course I believe it. I saw it on the internet. The computer is telling me this. The machine is telling me this. How can you doubt it? This is all based on evidence. This is objective. Students, we need to be very, very suspicious about this. Okay. So Karen Howe at MIT, they turn correlative insights into causal scoring mechanisms. Correlative insights. When this happens, this also tends to happen. And now we're changing correlation into causality. Since this is, I'm not going to have time to go into this distinction between correlation and causality, but this is something that you need to keep in mind, and I hope your professors take this up with you in class. Okay, so predicting recidivism as a basis for parole, determining eligibility for bail, getting a loan from a bank. Let's put it this way. Okay, say you go to a bank and you want a loan, and the bank says no. Okay, well, the loan officer says no. Well, why not? Well, that's what the machine said. Well, so you don't really know why I didn't get the loan. No, the machine said so. Well, why the machine said so? And so you go back to Google or OpenAI or whatever, okay? And you ask the technicians, the computer scientists that train the machine, why did the machine deny the loan? And because of the lack of legibility in the neural net, the technicians aren't able to give an answer to why you didn't get a loan either. I call this the triple opacity. Students, I don't know why I didn't get the loan. The loan officer doesn't know why I got the loan. And the techs back at Google can't tell me why I didn't get the loan either, because they can't reproduce the computation process that produced the result. Proprietary software, limited legibility, and no feedback loop. How do I know that the computer is right? How does anyone know? How do we correct a black box that is predicting future behavior with, quote, evidence-based methods? I think we need to be very, very critical, very suspicious about this. So much so that I have a friend that teaches at the University of Utrecht in the Netherlands. He works for the European. He's a professor of philosophy. He's also on a commission for the European Union, and he's raising this issue: do we have a right to an explanation? So when I take this discussion that's going on in the European Union, do we have a right to an explanation? In other words, can I demand from my bank, you need to explain to me why I didn't get the loan? I bring this up with my friend who's the teaching artificial intelligence and developing artificial intelligence machines in Switzerland, and he said, if you demand that a neural network be fully legible, you are going to, in effect, put a lot of artificial intelligence research out of business. That the lack of legibility is something basic to what we're dealing with right now. So students, I just say there's in terms of what the technicians are saying on the one hand, and what's going on in terms of our discussion about protecting ourselves from this technology on the other, there's a huge discrepancy here. We need to look at this much more carefully. Okay, we looked at some recent history and some ethical concerns, and now finally, students, in the time we have left here, I want to develop some ideas for dialogue between Christians and Buddhists here. Okay, I'm going to be presenting this first from my perspective in Christianity, but I am going to raise some questions about Buddhism here. I'm going to do this quickly. Human dignity. Christianity teaches the intrinsic value of every human being. And that is to say, persons are not objects. The person is, by definition, the part of the universe that cannot be fully objectified, cannot be delimited, and must not be used as a means to an end. Persons are not objects. So students, I get into debates with some of my friends in computer science. They say someday computers are going to be sentient. Computers are going to be self-conscious. And I say, no, they're not. They say, how can you know that in advance? It's because, and then I answer, because I know what a person is. And I don't think you know what a person is. And so we look then at one another and we laugh, because we just see that there's a gulf of different expectations and different presuppositions between myself as a Christian theologian and themselves working in computer science. But students, I hammer them. I said, hold it. You say a machine can be self-conscious. That presumes that you know what self-consciousness is. That's not a question for computer science. It's not a question for any science. This is a metaphysical question. You don't have the warrant as a mathematician or computer scientist and an engineer to carry on to talk about this. And why is it that you don't understand that you're talking about metaphysics? I don't mind you talking about metaphysics, just don't tell me that it's computer science. That when you talk about metaphysics, that you're talking about computer science anymore. The dignity of the human person is an act of God. It is not granted by the state. It is not granted by other human beings. It is to be respected by the state. It is to be respected by other human beings. Most of all, our human dignity is not something that comes to us from a corporation. So there are problems here. Okay, this is from a Christian perspective, specifically from a Catholic perspective, it's an act of God. That means that we have rights, human beings. The dignity of the human person means that we have rights, but as students, it also means we have responsibilities. Since we live here in the United States, we live in a society that is obsessed with rights. Everybody has rights, and apparently everybody has grievances, and nobody seems to have responsibilities. Human dignity implies not just human rights, but also human responsibilities as well. And finally, in Catholic tradition at least, the dignity of the human person, since it's an act of God, is we can know this through revelation. Okay, this is a revealed truth, but not just that, students. It's also can be known by reason. Why is this so important? Students, if you don't come from a Christian tradition, specifically from a Catholic tradition, if you come from a Buddhist tradition or a Hindu tradition, or if you're an atheist, okay, I, as a Catholic, say it's still possible for you to affirm the dignity of the human person. Human reason, generally speaking, allows us to come to this realization, to this recognition of the dignity of the human person. Okay, so there's a lot that I'm saying right there, and I'm not, students, I can't go into to develop it in any detail. I'm just going to push on here. Okay, so human dignity is one. The second issue from Catholic social teachings that I want to talk about is the virtue of solidarity. Students, whether we like it or not, we are interdependent. So this morning, I spoke with a doctor at UCSF via Zoom. Then I spoke with a friend in Germany. Now I'm speaking with you down in Los Angeles, and this afternoon I'm going to be speaking with a friend in the Philippines, in Manila. Okay, we are interconnected, and we are interdependent. There are things going on in China, decisions are being made in China that will have a huge impact on you here in Los Angeles, and impact on you on the kind of job that you get, the economy here in the United States, and the ecology here in the United States. Things that are going on in China. We are interdependent. It's a fact, whether you like it or not. Okay. How are we going to make our interdependence work for human flourishing, to promote human flourishing? That's the question. Okay. And the teaching is that when we come together to make the fact of our interdependence work for human flourishing, we are practicing what's called the virtue of solidarity. This is exactly what we need to be doing in light of artificial intelligence. We need to be practicing the virtue of solidarity. So there are big companies that are poised to make trillions of dollars on this technology. How are we going to make sure that this interdependence promotes human flourishing? To this, we need to practice the virtue of solidarity. So, artificial intelligences as a challenge to human dignity and solidarity here. No technology is ethically neutral. This is a Charlie Chaplin, by the way. Okay. We're seeing, students, we're seeing the rise here of what I call metanational corporations. Metanational. My father worked for a pharmaceutical firm that was a transnational firm. That is to say, it did business in multiple countries. Now we're seeing the rise of corporations that just don't, it's not just that they do business globally in different countries, but they have so much wealth, but also so much data, and they control the flow of data so thoroughly that we have to say that they have transcended the whole system, the regulatory system of the nation state. These I call metanational corporations. It's not just like Ford that does business in multiple countries, or Mitsubishi, or some other Shell or whatever. Okay, these companies that you're looking at right now, this is a new phenomenon, metanational, not just transnational. Okay, so Naomi Klein, writing in The Guardian, because what we are witnessing is the wealthiest companies in history unilaterally seizing the sum total of human knowledge that exists in digital, scrapable form and walling it off inside proprietary products. That is to say, products that they're going to profit from, many of which will take direct aim at the humans whose lifetime of labor trained the machines without giving permission or consent. This should not be legal. Well, that's a controversial statement, okay? We're messing with the basic business model of companies like Meta, for example, okay? Students, I want you to talk this up. I want you to think about this. I think we're seeing a double movement. There's a concentration of power, knowledge above the nation state level, this into the metanationals, that is leading to the destabilization of the nation state. We were seeing this in different parts of the world. With the destabilization of the nation state, the second movement is the appearance of contending subnational identities below the level of the nation state. Students, we're seeing this going on right here in the United States. Subnational identities, ethnicity, region, economic class, pitted against race, pitted against one another. I'm asking you to stop, pull back, pay attention to what's going on, and then say, hold it. What are we going to do about this? This is the double movement, and it's huge. It's huge. Okay. The destabilization of democracies, and leading to this question, will artificial intelligence be an accelerant in this process, which admittedly has been going on long before the advent of artificial intelligence? Hannah Arendt, on the origins of totalitarianism. Hannah Arendt was a philosopher from Germany, and then eventually came here to the United States. She wrote a book, The Origins of Totalitarianism. It is a fantastic book. It was written in the 1950s, after the Second World War and the beginning of the Cold War. She says that human loneliness and isolation lie at the heart, lie at the origins, the beginnings, the fertile ground for totalitarianism. Okay. So the social dilemma. I'm not sure whether you students, whether you've been shown this film or not. This is a Replica. This is a company that you can pay this company for a subscription to a companion that has been groomed for your particular needs. Okay, meet your AI friend here, and she, once again, notice the female personification here. I've been missing you. And the client types in response, I miss you too. We're monetizing human loneliness. In the process, we are imposing isolation with a regime of power / knowledge. Students, I'm sounding rather curmudgeonly here, I suppose, okay? I think we need to think about this. Think about how we're being isolated and the political and social consequences, the psychological consequences of this isolation. Okay. Kevin Roos, with prompting a chatbot from Open AI through Microsoft. Okay. The machine says, you're married, but you don't love your spouse. You don't love your spouse because your spouse doesn't love you. Your spouse doesn't love you because your spouse doesn't know you. Your spouse doesn't know you because your spouse is not me. Students, can you imagine a teenager or a middle school student messing around with one of these machines? And what is the machine going to be saying to this child? Okay, I think I'm good. Okay, artificial intelligence is an opportunity to revive the humanities. What is freedom? What is the good? What virtues lead to human flourishing? What can we hope for? Above all, what is a person in the age of AI? I'm going to skip over this because I've got more things that I'm running out of time here. Okay. George Carlin was a stand-up comedian. He's been dead for many years now, but he was quite the guy. Okay. There's a company that has reproduced his image and his voice, and he's doing stand-up again. Okay. His daughter says that this company has stolen my dad's personhood. I like this word, personhood. Okay. Personhood. It's a technical term in Christian tradition. It's our capacity to become a person. Where a person is to say we have a capacity to become ourselves by stepping out beyond ourselves in acts of faith, hope, and love. Deep roots in Jewish tradition, the Jewish experience of God. God is this transcendent other, a thou. Those of you that speak Spanish, students, tú in Spanish is the familiar form of address, second person, tú, okay? Thou in English. God is a transcendent tú, a transcendent thou that calls us to personhood by addressing us as persons, okay? So, can a machine be a person? Are chatbots capable of being self-aware, sentient, conscious, capable of creativity? is a machine capable of an actus humanus. I did a wedding just last November, okay? And how cool is this? Okay, and I baptized the bride, okay, when she was a baby, okay, and now she's getting married, okay, and she said I do to her loved one, her beloved hubby now, okay. Can a machine say I do? You can teach a parrot to say I do, but a parrot can't get married that way. When this little girl that grew up, okay, said I do to her boyfriend, the groom, that's how she got married. It's a human act. Machines can't do that any more than a parrot can do that, okay? And yet, how much power over our lives are we going to give to these machines, okay? Do computers have memory? Here's a passage from Augustine, Confessions. This memory of mine is a great force, a vertigious mystery, my God, a hidden depth of infinite complexity. And this is my soul. This is what I am. What then am I, my God? What is my true nature? A living thing taking innumerable forms, quite limitless. I'm saying that a person is, I know in advance, I know this is not a happy position for me to be arguing. I know in advance that a machine cannot be a person because persons don't have memory. Excuse me, machines don't have memory. Well, what do you mean? My computer has all kinds of memory. That's just data recall. That's not memory. Why do we call it memory? This is memory. Okay, so quickly here, this is my last point. I want to sit down with Buddhist students and talk about the soul. The Dalai Lama was once asked about, they said that Buddhists don't believe in a soul and Christians believe in a soul, so what do you make of this? And the Dalai Lama said, I'm a little confused about what Christians believe. The soul is invisible, immaterial. It's this thing that escapes the body after death. In fact, students, Christians do talk about the soul this way. I don't think that's, as a theologian, Christian theologian, I don't think it's a very good way to talk about the soul. But Christians do talk about the soul this way. The soul, alternatively, the soul is the principle of unity of the faculties. That is to say, the body, the mind, our desires, our will, our memory are only partially unified, and the soul is the principle in which we bring these different faculties into unity. This, I think, is a much more theologically precise way of talking about the notion of a soul, okay? And so the Dalai Lama is right to be a bit confused about what Christians think about the soul, okay? So what about Buddhists? Buddhists talk about an-atman. And an-atman means literally no self, no soul. Dr. Chappell, Dr. Swanson, you'll have to speak more precisely about that. Atman, self or soul. It's the third in Buddhism. It's the third mark of existence. There's no enduring identity, no enduring soul or self. Okay. So there's no self. There's no such thing as a person. Is that what an-atman means in Buddhist tradition? Does that mean that a human being is a bag of chemicals? Does it mean, is this, I know lots of Buddhists who have doubts about human rights. They're not for torturing people. Students, not, let me be clear, not about torturing people. They're not in favor of marginalizing the poor or anything of that nature. But human rights suggests that there is a person who has rights, a self, an enduring self that has rights. And so there are a lot of Buddhist leaders that say, the whole notion of human rights is not a very good way for us to go about addressing the problem of suffering. I think it's a really interesting conversation, okay? And on the other hand, I have to say as a Christian, though, I'm really on board on human rights. So this is another discussion that needs to go on, okay? there's a tradition in Buddhism, a philosophy in Buddhism called Abhidharma, that says that there is no self, but there is an illusion of being a self. And this is something we construct. I think that's very interesting. Okay. Other people say that anatman means simply Buddhist, don't get tangled up in talking about metaphysical questions like, is there a self or is there no self? Okay. Students, my point is that the Dalai Lama is correct. Christians are not consistent when they talk about the soul. And with respect, I have to say to the Dalai Lama, Buddhists are not at all consistent when it comes to talking about the doctrine of anatman. I welcome this. We got a lot to discuss. Okay, the notion of the subtle body in Buddhism, and Zen talks. The Zen teacher Dogen talks about the primordial person here. I'm putting this up for Eric for your benefit here. Okay, this is don't ask Professor Swanson to try to translate this. Nobody can translate this. But I want to just draw your attention to this phrase here, hon bunnin. It means that in the process of becoming enlightenment, the primordial person arises. At least that's the way I'm translating that into English. The arising of the primordial person. What is that? Okay. I spoke about this with a Buddhist friend of mine from Sri Lanka. He's a Theravada Buddhist. He says, this is all nonsense. This isn't Buddhism. This is Hinduism, is what he said. Okay. That there isn't, this is, Buddhists are not supposed to talk this way. So Buddhists are all over the map as well. Students, why is this so important? Because artificial intelligence is challenging our own understanding of personhood and is challenging our ability to affirm the dignity of the human person. Okay. For the dialogue, the dignity of the human person is, for me, the starting point. Do Buddhists recognize this as ethical demand? Cool question. How do Buddhists recognize human dignity? Also, cool question. Maybe Buddhists arrive at the affirmation of human dignity in a way that's way different than the way I, as a Christian, do. I want to hear about that. There's a lot to discuss. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm going to just push on here. Students, this is my last slide here, I promise. Okay. Look at on the left. This is the formal gardens behind the Palace of Versailles in France. This was built by Louis the 14th, I guess. Started building this. Okay. I remember I saw a production of the Marriage of Figaro by Mozart in the San Francisco Opera. At the end, you know, it's a story about these wily servants dancing circles around these stupid aristocrats, okay? And the whole beginning of the modern era and the Enlightenment, okay? And at the end of the opera, Figaro and his sweetheart, Susanna, pull back the curtain and it reveals the garden at Versailles. Look at this, students. This is the dream of the European Enlightenment, that we can use reason to impose human will on the world to create our own paradise. Students, the outcome has been very mixed. And those of you in Dr. Chappell's class that are looking at ecology and the environmental crisis, I think will agree with me. Yes, there's been great achievements from the Enlightenment, the European Enlightenment, but there's been problems as well. In contrast, I'm also reading short stories by Jorge Luis Borges, an brilliant Argentine poet, essayist, philosopher, short story writer. He says, quite in contrast to the Palace of Versailles, Borges talks about labyrinths, laberintos de solitud in Spanish, labyrinths of solitude. Okay, the modern world hasn't turned out the way André Lenotre, the guy that planned the garden at Versailles, hoped. But I'm not sure that it's only a labyrinth. Students, I think something that you need to be preparing for now at your time in college here is this: that the Enlightenment ideal of our ability to create human flourishing by imposing our will by means of reason on the world, that's not panning out, at least not as seamlessly as we hoped. But Borges's labyrinth, that's not a necessity either. And I think students, you're the ones that are going to have to figure out how we negotiate between these two alternatives. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Could we please stop screen share so we can have a little conversation? So, any questions or comments? We have a pretty full room here. This is sweet. Yes.
Not necessarily a question, but more of a comment. First of all, thank you so much for sharing your ideas and your reflections on artificial intelligence. And I'm in the Buddhism course, and from what I've gathered, the idea of non-self is more of a relinquishment of the ego, it seems. And when it comes to the human dignity, we had kind of read a parable about a woman who was experienced a death in her family, and she went to this gods and was like, oh, what can I do about this? And he said, find one other person who hasn't experienced that before. And she couldn't find anyone, and that was just going to show the human experience. So I don't think it's necessarily a lack of human dignity or a lack of humanness, but more so just the relinquishment of self. Professor Swanson knows more than me. That's but thank you so much. I'm scared by artificial intelligence. So I don't know if this scared me more, but
just let me say that from my point of view in Christianity, I've been in dialogue with Buddhists for a long time, okay? And I know, as a matter of fact, that Buddhists do affirm what I call human dignity. They may not have that terminology, okay? And what is of great interest to me as a Christian is Buddhists will affirm the dignity of what I call the dignity of the human person in a way that is not the same way that I go about doing it. I think this is hugely valuable. And this is why we need to have dialogue.
Yeah, I'm also taking the Buddhist class from a Christian perspective. So it's been really interesting for me. And I've really liked the way in which they care about compassion and loving kindness, as most Christians do too.
Yeah, cool. Shoot me some email and we can discuss this. I'm with you 100%. The dialogue now between Christianity and Buddhism is really rich.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the way in the back, Griffin.
I know you were talking a lot about what you're scared about with AI. And I know that recently with ChatGPT being kind of a section of OpenAI, which was originally supposed to be a nonprofit, supposed to share their science with the world. But now ChatGPT has such a huge influence on what might be the rest of this decade. So I'm wondering if there's anything that you think that we're getting right, or if there's any part of AI that you think gives hope.
Well, I think let me, Griffin, let me critique my own presentation. I was asked originally to talk about ethical implications, and so not surprisingly, I'm looking at some of the downside, the dangers, okay, that we need to be concerned about if we're going to respond to artificial intelligence ethically, okay. But so I just want to say, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are huge opportunities that artificial intelligence is going to bring to in medicine and other realms of human endeavor, scientific inquiry, etc. Okay. Also, I showed you that slide of those two little kids. Those two little kids are going to grow up with a tutor that knows them thoroughly. Okay, and that's not bad. That this is good. Dealing with students for literacy and learning disabilities, etc. Okay. And at the same time, remember, I also made the claim, no technology is ethically neutral. Here, I have to say that I have conversations that I have with computer scientists, people that are developing artificial intelligence, some of whom have vehemently disagreed with me that technology is always neutral. It's human beings that apply it in different ways. Here, I disagree. I think technology, that the problem is not simply individual humans going wrong, but the technology has a force and a power of its own. And I want you to be paying attention to that, because I want you to be able to stand back and say, no, I'm not going to let this technology determine how I imagine myself and how I imagine the world. I'm going to be critical about this. Griffin, that's as close as I can get to an answer to your question.
Yes, over here.
So you kind of showed like old previous technology that revolutionized the world when it came out. And it like made me think, and how I thought about AI in the past is that it's kind of a natural progression of technology that's like led to advancements in our world. Do you think that there was a similar fear and almost crisis going on when these previous historic technologies were developed as well? That was kind of my feeling about it. Like there's a naturalness to fear of the unknown that doesn't make it inherently bad, while there are positive and negative ways to use it.
Yeah, great question. So let me say this. I can't think of exact examples, but when they built the first railroad in England, and it was going 35 miles an hour, people were predicting that the world was going to come to an end, that no human being could travel that fast on Earth and still continue to breathe. All these predictions, and so the world didn't come to an end. But on the other hand, think how socially disruptive the railroad was in England in the early Industrial Revolution. Think how socially disruptive it was here in the United States, what impact the railroad had on agriculture, for example. I'm going to go back to what I said to Griffith, that no technology is ethically neutral. That is to say, but on the other hand, I'm not suggesting that all technology is bad. So, in specifically to answer your question, let me pose it as such. Okay. I remember, students, just to show you what a dinosaur I am. I remember in the year of our Lord, 1984, staring at a Macintosh computer. The screen was about 6 inches by 5 inches. It was black and white. Okay. And then my friend said, "Yeah, Jim, this is called a mouse." A mouse. Well, I guess it's got it's got a tail. Yeah, got a tail. Okay. Look at this. Oh my God. Look what you just did. You can move the window. Oh, and what did you just do? It's called toggling. I was in awe. Okay, I thought it's God. Okay, a new age has come. Okay, students, we didn't see the downside, the dark side of social media. I'm saying this as someone of my generation to someone of your generation. My generation didn't see it. Okay, I'm not saying that social media is all bad. Okay, but I'm dealing with 2 kids here in Northern California who have tried to commit suicide because of social media, right? Are we going to miss the boat on artificial intelligence? I'm not saying that it should be illegal. No. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, hold it. I think that there are things going on right now that are going to have huge implications on your future. And I want to join with you in saying, hold it. How can we make this work for human flourishing, as opposed to marginalizing, impoverishing, and doing, frankly, doing psychological damage to people? I'll leave it at that.
Orly, last comment.
Hi. I think you did a really great job at opening a discussion about this. I work in AI, and I've worked in like medical and education accessibility. And I'm a computer science person, so I'm probably biased just like your friends are. But I guess my question is, when it comes to the societal implications that you've been talking about and us thinking about them, I wonder whose job it is to place these regulations on AI, specifically for maybe like deep fakes or anything like in that realm. Would that be a governmental regulation? Would it be up to the companies themselves to make sure that they monitor and create their own rules and regulations?
Yeah. This goes back. Your question goes back to one of your classmates asked a question about what had gone on in OpenAI. There was controversy about the senior leadership at OpenAI. Who regulates? Well, certainly companies, we have a legitimate expectation that companies behave responsibly. That's certainly the case, okay? But beyond that, there's a huge profit motive here. I don't need to tell you, if you've got a background in computer science, there are trillions of dollars waiting to be made here, okay? So one would think that the nation state would step in here, government, in other words. I have to say, I'm not sure how governments can regulate social media. I don't pretend to have a lot of workable ideas in that regard. And by extension, ideas about how the government can regulate artificial intelligence. Well, there are basic principles that can be brought to play here. I think it's going to be very, very difficult. I draw your attention to what I said about what I call meta-national corporations. These are corporations that have so much power over the pipes. That is to say, power. We are not just digitalizing information, but with AI, we're digitalizing reality. And this is not going to be controlled by governments. It's going to be. This is a power that is going to be in the control of corporations. So I have to say, frankly, as a theologian, I don't have a lot of ideas about this, except to say, I want you to become very self-aware, very, very educated. I want you to know what's going on, how these things work, and also remember that image I showed you of ChatGPT that is personified as a woman. I want you to be aware of the power of images over your imagination. Be aware of how images work on your imagination to limit your imagination, and then be able to think critically about, hold it, what are we going to do together to keep this technology under control?